WrestleMania 8. The Hoosier Dome, Indianapolis, Indiana, April 5th, 1992. We were going to see one of the biggest spectacles in WWF history at WrestleMania 8. It had to be it. It had to be. This was the one chance to have it, to have Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania. But that didn't happen, did it? As seen on this WWF WrestleMania 8 program souvenir, it's Ric Flair defending the WWF title against the Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan going one-on-one with Sid Justice. But how did we get to all that? Well, let's take a look here at the history of WrestleMania 8. First of all, to do the history, we have to talk about the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Ric Flair came to the WWF, leaving WCW in the summer of 1991 to jump ship and bring with him the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Of course, it was also called the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, but Ric Flair still rightfully owned it because of the NWA name and the money he put down as champion while holding it. So Flair had every right to bring it to the WWF with him, and he did, and Bobby the Brain Heenan debuted with that title belt, calling it the Real World's Championship, and the Real World's champion, Ric Flair. So Ric Flair was finally in the World Wrestling Federation, something we always dreamt of for years. Would Flair ever jump ship, and would Ric Flair ever wrestle the immortal Hulk Hogan? The Wrestler, December 91. Roddy Piper's exclusive analysis, Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan, who will win the match of the century. Yes, because everyone thought that this was going to be the big main event match that year at WrestleMania. Even I did. I was 11 years old at the time, and I thought to myself, Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair has to happen in the main event of WrestleMania. This has been a dream match for years. Well, as it turns out, these two were having matches, but at house shows. And I guess they weren't the greatest matches. And probably not too shocking. Both men's style definitely conflict each other. But I figured with the right people in charge to put the match together, that they'd get the best of both men and make an entertaining match. I guess the matches did not get over in Vince's viewpoint. So Vince kind of shoot away from the Flair versus Hogan big time dream match at WrestleMania. But to get to that, we have to have the Royal Rumble. That's right. This year, the Royal Rumble had 30 men trying to win not just the Rumble match itself, but win the vacant World Wrestling Federation Championship. As you can see there, you got Hulk Hogan, Nature Boy Ric Flair, The Undertaker, the former WWF champion, Big Boss Man, Jake the Snake Roberts, Macho Man Randy Savage, Rowdy Roddy Piper, and Sid Justice, all on the cover of this souvenir edition program for the Royal Rumble. So, what happened? 30 men, one chance at the title. Who was going to come out the winner? The Wrestler, May 1992. He rumbled past 29 men. Ric Flair's Hour of Power. Can one man stop him at WrestleMania 8? That's right, Ric Flair, the new World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, eliminating Sid Justice with the help of Hulk Hogan there to win the championship after being in the ring for 60-plus minutes. Ric Flair proving he was the 60-minute man, not just in the NWA, and not just in WCW, and not just all around the territories that he traveled, but also in the WWF and in 1992 for that matter. The WWF magazine, March 92, Ric Flair sizes up his competition for WrestleMania 8. Who was the Nature Boy going to be defending the championship against? A lot of important people there in that photo that Flair could have wrestled. Was it going to be Sid Justice, the man he eliminated to win the Royal Rumble? Was it going to be The Undertaker, the former WWF champion who never got a proper rematch against Hulk Hogan after this Tuesday in Texas? Was it Rowdy Roddy Piper, because he was feuding with Ric Flair up to this point? Was it Hulk Hogan, the former WWF champion? I mean, he rightfully does deserve that title match against the Nature Boy. Or was it the dark horse in Macho Man Randy Savage, who was just feuding with Jake the Snake Roberts after coming back and being reinstated into the World Wrestling Federation? Well, the proper man was picked by President Jack Tunney. And even though Sid Justice was standing up thinking he was the one to be picked, they went with the Macho Man Randy Savage to wrestle the Nature Boy Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. April 92 of the WWF magazine. Here we see Ric Flair and the Macho Man, and we see Sid and the Hulkster. Two big main event matches for WrestleMania 8. You know, again, looking back as an 11-year-old kid, I didn't understand why it wasn't Hogan and Flair. I remember thinking it's going to be Hogan and Flair and Savage versus Jake the Snake, Sid versus The Undertaker. You know, these were all matches in my head I thought were going to be happening at this event. And things got changed up now, didn't they? June 1992 of the WWF magazine. It's the WrestleMania 8 results. Macho Man reigns again. The Hulkster rules supreme. And a tribute to Hulk, the history of Hulkamania in pictures and words. And Warrior returns, justice will be done. That's right, the Ultimate Warrior making his grand return at WrestleMania 8 to help out the Immortal One Hulk Hogan and getting attacked by not just Sid Justice, but by Papa Shango as well. And of course, the Macho Man makes history, becoming a two-time World Wrestling Federation champion, defeating Ric Flair in a bloody match. Flair bladed. He wasn't supposed to. He got in trouble for it. But the weird thing about that match was it was in the middle of the card. That was, I think, the first time ever at a WrestleMania that the championship was, you know, in the middle of the card, not the last match. But the last match, of course, was Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice as the main event. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, August 1992. All the action and drama of WrestleMania 8. Hail and farewell. So this gives you the Bill Apter, Stanley Weston style look at that event. All the pictures and results and information is in this magazine, August 1992. Then comes up SummerSlam. SummerSlam 92. The showdown from London. That's right, we get the Ultimate Warrior versus the new champion Randy Savage for the WWF title in a return match from WrestleMania 7 when the Warrior ended the Macho Man's career. Ric Flair, of course, not in SummerSlam at all. He didn't have a match, wasn't involved in any of it like that, except for him and Mr. Perfect, you know, having a run-in with the Macho Man and the Ultimate Warrior during their title match. By the way, this championship match was in the middle of the card because the main event was the British Bulldog and Bret Hitman Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. Inside Wrestling, October 92, we get SummerSlam 92, talking about the Warrior and Savage and Bret and the Bulldog as well in this one. Inside Wrestling, January 1993. This was the greatest SummerSlam ever. So there you see the Ultimate Maniacs on the cover from their title match, Bulldog and Bret, the Legion of Doom against Money Incorporated. You know, it was a really, really cool event. As well as October 92 here, SummerSlam, everything you need to know about this mega event. Now, the reason why I talk about SummerSlam in this is quite simple. SummerSlam was the first event that did not have Hulk Hogan in it at all. There was no Hogan. WrestleMania 8 was the last appearance for Hulk Hogan until WrestleMania 9. WrestleMania 8 saw the return of the Ultimate Warrior. Thus, we get Savage and Warrior at SummerSlam in the WrestleMania 7 return match. We also see no Sid Justice at SummerSlam, for he is gone from the World Wrestling Federation already, not even being there a year. And like I said, Ric Flair wasn't wrestling on the card. He was just there to be involved in the match between Macho Man and the Ultimate Warrior. Now, it started off so strong at the beginning of the year. With all these main event stars, I'm talking Piper and Hogan and Macho and Sid, Undertaker, Flair. SummerSlam went to a drastic turn where you had a lot of these big guys at WrestleMania time. They weren't there in August, and they definitely weren't there as the rest of the year went. 1992 was a very transitional year for the WWF. At the beginning of the year, you have these big muscle powerhouses like the Barbarian and Warlord and Sid and and the Hulkster and such. And then by the end of the year, you got Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart reigning supreme in the WWF title match at Survivor Series. So what a drastic difference you have in a year's time. But WrestleMania 8 was kind of the peaking point of all this. WrestleMania 8 was probably the most biggest WrestleMania for quite some time. It was held at the Hoosier Dome. Did I say that right? The Hoosier Dome, Indianapolis, Indiana. It held like 80 some odd thousand fans. Okay, honestly, it was. If you go watch the event, it was huge. 80,000 fans. The following year, WrestleMania 9 in a Las Vegas parking lot. WrestleMania 10 was in Madison Square Garden. WrestleMania 11, a smaller arena. WrestleMania 12, a smaller arena with the Anaheim, the pond in Anaheim. WrestleMania 13 was in Chicago in an arena. 14 was in Boston in an arena. 15 was in Philadelphia in an arena. 16 was back in LA. It wasn't until WrestleMania 17 where they were back in a giant stadium for WrestleMania. So that was like 10 years pretty much. For 10 years, WrestleMania 8 was the last stadium pay-per-view event for a WrestleMania. And I guess that kind of shows that the star power and the bigger than life superstars definitely were dwindling as the years went on until we got to WrestleMania X7 in 2001. WrestleMania 8 for me will always be the end of that era. It was the end of the Hogan era. It was the end of the Magics that was the 80s, right? There was no more bigger than life superstars as the year went on. And when guys did return, like Hulk Hogan did in 1993, he was a lot smaller. He went from being like 303 pounds to like 275 pounds. Brutus Beefcake went from being like this jacked up, 270 pound wrestler to just an average looking big guy who was like 250 pounds. There was no muscle definition anymore because they weren't on the steroids. They couldn't be because of what was going down with the WWF at the time and the witch hunt for steroids and such with the company. So there you have it. WrestleMania 8 was the last big show for big guys and for what felt like an event that you were excited to see. Unfortunately, the next few years, it was different. And though I'm not saying those years were bad, a lot of great wrestling, a lot of great superstars still on WrestleMania. Just WrestleMania 8 kind of had that last big vibe feel until WrestleMania X7 in 2001. And, now WrestleMania is like crazy. It's 2-night event. It's insane. You're probably going to be packing like 80,000 fans both nights. It's wow, right? Totally different than it was in 1992. So this was my history and look back at WrestleMania 8. What did you guys like about it? Were you a fan of the event? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you want Flair versus Hogan? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that still to this day would have been a better draw at WrestleMania 8 than Flair and Savage and Hogan and Sid. I don't know. But I think WCW did it right when Hogan went there in 94. First event, Bash at the Beach, Ric Flair drops the WCW World title to Hulk Hogan. That's probably how it should have been all along, right? The Hulkster probably should have beat Flair, and then that could have been the dream match, and everyone would have been happy. But Vince McMahon likes to do things differently, and he opted to go with Macho Man Randy Savage against Nature Boy Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan against Sid Justice. All right, guys. This is my history of WrestleMania 8. Sorry I haven't done a video in a while. Been kind of busy, but was waiting for that SummerSlam 92 magazine. And now that it came in, I got to do this one. So I hope you enjoy this one. And WrestleMania, of course, is coming up this weekend. The Hall of Fame and all that good stuff. It's going to be a busy week of wrestling for the wrestling fans. So enjoy it. Maybe I'll be able to pop on with a video before that. Who knows? If not, like I said, enjoy the WrestleMania weekend. Enjoy all the wrestling and Hall of Fame and everything that's coming up. It's a fun week for all of us. So let's enjoy it for the most part, right? All right, guys. Until I do my next one, I'll talk to you later.